How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, this coronavirus is no joke. And I've been doing my research this morning, and I got some surprising things possibly to reveal to the royal family. So I have an article first that I'm going to read to the royal family, and to make life easier for me. And I know it's some new people on the True Royal family and True Royal. I'm dyslexic, all right? So sometimes I have to read from my laptop because it makes it easier for me. So how bad is things going on with this virus? Is anybody telling the truth? So the title here is, How Deadly is the New Coronavirus? It's still too early to tell. Really? Okay. Scientists can't tell yet how deadly the new virus that spreads around the globe really is, and deepening the mystery, the fatality rates different even within China. As infections of the virus that causes the COVID-19 surge in other countries, even a low fatality rate can add up to lots of victims, and understanding why one place fares better than another becomes critical to unravel. You could have bad outcomes with this initially until you really get the hang of how to manage it. Dr. Bruce Onward, the World Health Organization, who led a team of scientists just back from China, warned Tuesday in the central city of Wuhan, where the new virus, and that's where everything started. The new virus first exposed 2% to 4% of patients have died, according to WHO, and WHO is the World Health Organization. But in the rest of the hard-hit China, the death rate was strikingly lower, 0.7. These numbers don't mean shit. There's nothing different about the virus from one place to another. Instead, the never-before-seen strain of coronavirus struck Wuhan fast before anyone knew what the illness was, and overwhelmed health facilities. As is usual at the beginning of an outbreak, the first patients were severely ill before they sought care, Dr. Onward said. By the time people were getting sick in other parts of China, authorities were better able to spot milder cases, meaning there were more known infections of each death count. And while there were no specific treatment for COVID-19, earlier supportive care may help too. China went from about 15 days between onset of symptoms and hospitalized early in the outbreak to about 3 days more recently. Still, Dr. Onward expressed frustrations at people saying, oh, the mortality rate not so bad because there were more milder cases. Sorry, the number of people that were dying still died. Until the past week, most people diagnosed outside of China became infected while traveling there. People who travel generally are healthier and thus may be better able to recover. Note, Johns Hopkins University. Let me see. And countries begin screening, and returning travelers spotted infections far earlier in place where the medical system wasn't already strained. That's now changing, with clusters of cases in Japan, Italy, and Iran, and the death toll outside of China growing. Dr. Onward cautioned that the authorities should be careful of artificially high death rates early on. Some of these countries likely are seeing the sickest patients at first and missing milder cases, just like Wuhan did. A cousin of this new virus caused the far deadlier severe acute respiratory symptoms outbreaks in 2003. About 10% of SARS patients died. Flu is a different virus family, and some strains are deadlier than others. On the average, the death rate for the seasonal flu is about 0.1. Ooh, they be playing these games with these numbers. 0.1, okay, that's far lower than what had been calculated so far for COVID-19. But millions of people get the flu every year around the world, leading to an annual death in the hundreds of thousands. But see, y'all talk percentages, then when you say actual numbers, that sounds like a lot to anybody. And them numbers is way higher than that. Older people, especially with chronic illnesses such as heart or lung disease, are more at risk. Among young people, death rates are rare, Dr. Onward said, but some young deaths have made headlines, such as the 34-year-old doctor in China who was reprimanded by the communist authorities for sounding an early alarm about the virus, only later to be killed by the disease. These people full of shit. I already did this story. They killed that man. Because he was alerting people. Now his whole family got it. And we ain't even heard nothing else about his family or anything like that. Woo, these people was pissed with him. Okay. In China, 80% of the patients are mildly ill when the virus is detected, compared to 13% were already as severely ill, while the sickest to start with are at the highest rate of death. Dr. Onward said a fraction of the mildly ill do go on to die for unknown reasons. An average, however, the World Health Organization said people with milder cases recover in about 2 weeks, while those who are sicker can take anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. Okay. So let's go on and continue to go on this journey and see what's really going on.
In 2018, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates gave an ominous warning that the world needs to prepare for pandemics in the same serious way it prepares for war.
Let's not lose sight that Bill Gates owns the patent to coronavirus. As we continue on.
2 years later, an outbreak of a coronavirus in Wuhan, China gripped the world as the death toll and infection count grew by the day. The first string of infections was reported to the World Health Organization's China office on the last day of 2019.
Declaring a public health emergency of international concern.
The international agency then declared a global emergency a month later. The rare designation allows it to mobilize financial and political support to contain the virus's spread. Less than 2 months after it was first reported, the virus had infected more than 75,000 people worldwide and killed more than 2,000. So what happens when a completely unforeseen event shocks the world's second largest economy? The disease, which is now officially called COVID-19, appears to have originated from a seafood market in Wuhan, China, where wild animals were illegally traded. To date, at least 25 countries have reported cases of COVID-19, including the US, UK, India, Japan, and Singapore. However, despite its spread, the World Health Organization still considers the new coronavirus an epidemic, not a pandemic, which is defined as an ongoing epidemic on 2 or more continents. The timing of the outbreak was a double whammy for China's economy. The country was in the midst of an ongoing trade war with the United States that was already slowing down growth. It also took hold before the busy Lunar New Year travel season, when hundreds of millions of people normally travel home to celebrate with their families. At least 10 Chinese cities were locked down in late January as authorities attempted to contain the new virus, leading to the cancellation of flights, events, and the closure of venues.
So how exactly has business been impacted in China? Well, businesses across the nation were already winding down operations in the lead up to the Lunar New Year holiday, which lasts for a week.
But that closure was extended in the wake of the outbreak. This affected restaurants and stores too, as the government discouraged mass gatherings. Businesses and factories in at least 24 provinces, municipalities, and other regions were told not to resume work until February 10th at the earliest. Together, these hubs account for more than 80% of China's GDP and 90% of its exports. At the same time, thousands of flights from more than 50 airlines, including Delta and British Airways, were canceled, as governments imposed travel restrictions to and from China. Domestic rail trips plummeted more than 75%, while its tourism industry is in a tailspin as the Chinese stay at home and foreigners avoid the country. Even in Disneyland, the nightmare is creeping in as theme parks in Shanghai and Hong Kong were closed. Disney warned it's expecting to take a $175 million hit if the parks stay closed for 2 months. China's box office, meanwhile, which is highly lucrative for Hollywood, took an estimated $210 million beating on what was expected to be a gangbuster weekend. All 7 films scheduled for release over the Lunar New Year holiday announced they were pulling screenings. In fact, China's box office revenues plunged to less than $4 million this year from $1.5 billion over the same 20-day period commencing on the eve of the Lunar New Year. And it's not just the consumer landscape that has been severely disrupted. The fallout from the virus has essentially isolated the world's largest population from the rest of the world, disrupting worldwide trade and supply chains in the process. In the weeks following January 20th, ship activity at China's major ports fell 20%. Even oil prices have fallen as demand weakens in China, the world's largest importer of oil. Automakers from Nissan to Honda and American giants Apple and Nike all have massive operations in China that have been impacted as well. To understand the magnitude of COVID-19, it might be useful to look back at the SARS outbreak 17 years ago, which infected more than 8,000 people worldwide and caused nearly 800 deaths.
I'm listening to this the first time with the royal family. In number 17, it came up, my royal family. So continue to watch this video with your spiritual eyes, with your spiritual ears, because I really need the royal family to render their voice. And there's some prophecies that are being fulfilled, but we'll get deeper into that. But when I catch that number, I must acknowledge it. Again, 17 means in the word overcoming the enemy and a complete victory.
COVID-19 and SARS came from the same family of coronavirus, but the number of COVID-19 cases has quickly outpaced SARS. This graph, which shows the 30 days following the World Health Organization's first reports on the outbreaks, shows the dramatic difference. However, despite already clocking more deaths than SARS, initial figures from the government suggest that of the total confirmed cases in China, between 2 and 3% have died. The World Health Organization placed China's case fatality ratio for SARS at 7%. From the first to second quarter in 2003, China's real GDP growth plunged by 2 percentage points as a result of SARS, and growth in China slowed from 8% year-on-year to 5% during the outbreak.
But one major thing is different now. China's economy in 2003 during the SARS outbreak was much smaller than what it is today.
Just look at how China's economy has grown. It made up about 4% of global GDP in 2003. That's grown to more than 15% in these 17 years. China's annual economic output has surged from $1.7 trillion to nearly $14 trillion, while its economic output per person has gone from nearly $1,300 in 2003 to more than $9,000 in 2018. China has also been the world's largest exporter for more than a decade, with many countries such as Japan and Vietnam very reliant on the Chinese supply chain.
China is much more intertwined to the world economy than ever before. Because of this, the global economy, not just China, will feel the impact of the virus.
While it's too early to know exactly how dramatically China's economy will be impacted, economists and companies alike have sounded multiple warning bells. One IHS Markit report summed it up well, saying any slowdown in the Chinese economy sends not ripples but waves across the globe. In 2019, China's economy grew just 6.1%, thanks in part to the trade war. It was the country's weakest growth in nearly 30 years. Still, as a result of the virus, numerous banks and research houses have downgraded China's GDP growth forecast for 2020. Some have even warned that China's economy could enter a technical recession. That's defined as 2 back-to-back quarters of negative growth, and some even worry it could spread globally. China's government has poured billions of dollars into the financial system as it attempts to restore investor confidence and minimize the economic fallout among a slew of emergency measures. To minimize job losses, the government is expected to approve tax relief and subsidies for sectors that have been impacted by the virus. And China's central bank announced measures aimed at lowering borrowing costs and easing financial strains on affected industries. However, some analysts remain unconvinced that Beijing's monetary and fiscal policy measures will work in the near term.
As the outbreak unexpectedly upended normal business operations in China, its overall impact on the economy is likely to be analyzed for decades to come.
All right, my royal family, shut this down. You know, they can't help themselves but talk about money. You know, we talked a little bit about, how this stuff is affecting folks. And I can't but not look at the fact of how the royal family has been affected by Moab. How you come to our communities and put your liquor stores up and all you want us to do is buy. How you bring that shitty ass, fake ass Chinese food that y'all wouldn't even eat, shit Chinese food, buy. And then the one that really gets my fucking goat is y'all have sewn up the black hair care product industry where you make it extremely hard for our own people to sell what we know, what we need for our hair. And I remember when I had my first channel that I lost, I was bound and determined to buy from black owned. So I looked in the business listing in Oakland, California for black owned businesses. And as I'm calling these beauty supply places, Asian people were answering the phone, and it was pissing me off because they even have a listing for the Chinese businesses or the Asian businesses, and there is no black owned businesses there. So this is on you, Moab, what you have done to the royal family. How many people we have put through schools. How many more business off of our hard-earned dollars that y'all have. And let's not forget that y'all are so jealous and envious of us that you felt like we was getting too much because y'all were concerned about us, going to college. And what you did was, being the whistleblower, you blew the whistle on Esau at the end of the day, and also exposed even more your own people. Because when our folks go to college, we know we are watched like a hawk. We don't have the opportunity to cheat the way that y'all cheat along with Esau. Remember that, my royal family. I know y'all say, yeah, True Royal is on a tangent. Yes, I'm on a tangent because I feel some kind of way. I said to y'all the other day, my royal family, that I have noticed that any since we didn't came out of our captivity. Anybody to do anything against us, say anything against us, now they are starting to feel the beginning of the wrath. This stuff is deadly. And as I continue on with this video, you'll see how much more deadly this is. But the other thing, and I'll say that at the last part of it, I see something else that's going on too as well. But I must speak on the stuff that has impacted our communities from these greedy motherfuckers.
Robert Cadlick, HHS's Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, and Dr. Stephen Hahn, the Commissioner of Food and Drugs. As of this morning, we still have only 14 cases of the China coronavirus detected here in the United States, involving travel to China or close contacts with those travelers. We have 3 cases among Americans repatriated from Wuhan, and we have 40 cases among American passengers repatriated from the Diamond Princess in Japan. I want to thank the responders and communities that have worked with HHS and the administration to provide these Americans with the treatment they need. I'm also grateful to the governors and other state and local leaders who have worked with us in close partnership so far. The immediate risk to the general American public remains low. But as we have warned, that has the potential to change quickly. There is now community transmission in a number of countries, including outside of Asia. That's deeply concerning, and community spread in other countries will make successful containment at our borders harder and harder. That's why we've already been working closely with state, local, and private sector partners to prepare for mitigating the virus's potential spread in the United States, because we will likely see more cases here, as we have said throughout this episode. Dr. Schuchat will provide some more details on what that will look like, including how we would treat potential cases that arise from community transmission here in the United States. This preparation has been possible in part because of how aggressively President Trump has responded to this outbreak. As soon as we knew of the threat presented by this novel virus, public health leaders were monitoring it and beginning to prepare. The travel restrictions that the president put in place at the beginning of this month have given our country valuable time to continue to prepare, and that is precisely what those measures were designed to do. That includes working with Congress. Yesterday, the White House sent a request to Congress to make at least $2.5 billion in funding available for preparedness and response. There are 5 major priorities within the supplemental request, which I underscored this morning before the Senate Appropriations Committee. First, we need to expand our surveillance work, building on an existing system we have within CDC's influenza surveillance network. Second, we will need funds to support public health preparedness and response for state and local governments for what could be a very large-scale response. We don't know, but we must prepare for that just in case. This support complements the significant funds that these partners have received from CDC for preparedness, about 2/3 of $1 billion a year in recent years. Third and fourth, we need to support the development of therapeutics and the development of vaccines. Given the scale of this outbreak, the private sector sees a real market for both kinds of countermeasures, as well as for diagnostics, but federal funding and guidance can accelerate this work. Dr. Fauci will address the current status of that work in more depth. Fifth and finally, we need funds for the purchase of personal protective equipment for the Strategic National Stockpile, a topic that Dr. Cadlick can address. I'll conclude by noting that though scheduling conflicts prevented this briefing from including other members of the President's coronavirus task force, we'll be providing a new update from interagency leaders soon, and we expect to continue doing so regularly. Earlier this afternoon on CNBC, the National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow offered an update on how we see this outbreak affecting the economy. This morning, Dr. Messonnier from CDC provided the usual telebriefing. As Dr. Schuchat will emphasize in just a moment, the Trump administration will continue to be aggressively transparent as the outbreak and our response evolve. We'll continue keeping the American people and the media apprised of the situation, as well as what everyone can do to prepare. In the meantime, I'll continue to work closely with President Trump and the President's task force on our preparations to keep Americans safe.
All right. So we done heard your lies. Let me shut this down because I don't want to hear this. We done heard your lies, all fluffy. You know what's so ironic? What's so ironic to me is that they showing the stock market. These people are something else. They showing the stock market. I'll put this link in here. Y'all can read and watch those other videos. But it's something that's hot off the press. It ain't even been an hour. And this what inspired me to do this video. So, U.S. soldier stationed in South Korea tests positive for coronavirus as global outbreaks worsen.
A U.S. soldier in South Korea testing positive for the virus. He is the first American service member to become infected. Let's go to Paula Hancock's live from Camp Humphreys, headquarters of the U.S. military in South Korea. Paula, what is the containment plan there?
Well, certainly they're trying to find out exactly who he has been in contact with in recent days and try and contain the virus in that way. It's a 23-year-old male. We understand he was from Camp Carroll, which is about 12 miles away from Daegu. This is the city in the southeast of the country where most of the cases are now happening. This is the area that the quarantine is being placed on around the country as well. So this is what the commander of Camp Humphreys behind me said earlier today.
That is our first case, positive case, as confirmed this morning in Daegu. We have since taken an ambulance and transported the one positive case to BDOC to be put in negative pressure isolation here on Camp Humphreys.
The alert level for USFK is at high. We are also hearing from 3 U.S. officials that we are expecting to hear the drills, those military drills between the U.S. and South Korea, will be scaled back. We're hearing from those U.S. officials that the two militaries simply can't cope with these kind of military drills at a time like this. There are huge restrictions on both militaries. We know the commander inside this base has just said that from tomorrow, from Thursday, it will be mission essential personnel only that are allowed on base. It's also only essential personnel that are allowed down to Daegu. At this point, they are telling people not to go out to restaurants. They are closing facilities on base as well, really trying to contain this as best they can.
So, all right. Let me
It's a reckoning
shut
in
this
global
down.
markets.
Let me shut this down. So, a U.S. soldier has came up positive. So now it has penetrated the military. Again, this virus has penetrated the military. So they're going to have to test them all because the only way they found out, they had some concerns. And we know that they like to lowball on their numbers on this stuff. And the part that I want to add, my royal family, when I first heard about the coronavirus and let me get over here, and really started meditating and paying attention to what I was looking at. Let's go here first. Okay, we all know about this hospital that was being built, and they said that this hospital, they were building it for 1,000 patients. I'm a construction worker. I was in the trade for 17 years. And I forget the brother offhand, one of the brothers has shared with me, I think he's a project manager that supports my channel. He kind of gave me the square footage on what we was looking at. So these are 2-story buildings. And this looks like, we'll just call it the letter E, just for the sake of calling it the letter E, with you know what I mean, with one more wing. And just one, at the bottom of the screen, that's 2 stories. That right there, 2 stories could hold over 1,000 patients. And then look at the rest of the buildings. This ain't for no 1,000 patients. I ain't no fool. I said, this shit is serious. And that is an enormous construction site with moving parts. So they're having some major concerns. And I would imagine there's some place on this picture where they're disposing bodies. Now, when I talked to Lisa said they're incinerating the bodies. They have even ordered even more. So I'm imagining somewhere on that site, they have incinerators to just burn the bodies up because they are worried about contamination and more patients. And what we are looking at is going to shut the borders down. All right? Serious. Everything gonna be on lockdown. And this country depends on this country to make many things for us, because they don't want to pay us over here properly. Well, this country is highly capable of making all those products that we depend on over in China. You're going to have to hire folks. You're going to have to pay folks right. And they need good ass benefits. But to take it a step further, what hit me first was, I said, there's a, it can be about many things, but the thing that hit me was, this is about oil. And this country, China has a greater dependence on oil because of the sheer number of people that live in that country. And this country that we live in, they feel like they are entitled to all the oil around the globe, to the point they will take people's oil, because when shit is popping off where it's oil rich, a lot of times them folks will start burning it up, and they'll say, send the soldiers over there to protect the oil. So it's like, the way that the enemy is looking at this, they would want as many of them to die as possible, because that would take away the need for the oil. Now, that's part of it. There's other things that's going on that I had mentioned earlier. And in the space and day and time that we are in, we are actually seeing these prophecies play out before our eyes. And it is amazing. It is amazing because, like I said, when I did that Bible study with Lioness about the book of Obadiah, and I was learning about Moab and how that was going to all go down with them, I was thinking, okay, I'm starting to see it, but I didn't think of this. Now, the part that we all know about is, for many years, they were on the one birth situation. They don't value females in this country at all. And so since they could only have one child, they aborted millions of baby girls. So the country is full of males. So they're not reproducing. So they are going through the same situation as Esau, but their numbers are still big. So I see what the divine hand is doing, because this particular tribe of people will be totally eliminated. That is it, and that is all, my royal family. And the shockwave will be felt globally. But in all of that, because I'm only looking at us, what this is going to do to us, something that I talk about a lot, that we gonna come together naturally, or because of certain events. We can come together now, or because of these events and more events that will happen. And I can clearly see it And I've been saying this over and over. But I didn't think about these damn plagues and viruses hitting, even though it is spoken in the word. I didn't think about that, and I clearly see it now. And I'm gonna say like Taryn say, I feel nothing. And the reason why I feel nothing, what I had spoke on earlier from the depths of my soul, what people continue to do to us, and thrive off us and suck off us, Now all of a sudden there is what's going on now in here, especially here in America. Something is wanted from the royal family, our vote. So there's a lot of things that's popping off. And I'll hear some of our folks say, well, why are you talking about that? We don't have nothing to do with that. We have a lot to do with everything because we are in the process of regaining our throne. Pay attention to the moving parts. But the only way we can fully get the big picture is this. Render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.